good morning, good lunch, good afternoon, I don't know. Let's talk about something that we haven't talked before on this conference, about AI, about platform engineering, and about SRE. I came from the company which is called Electrolux, and you might, we are brands and we are a company who are based on building and providing home and professional appliances. And you might know us by these three major brands, Electrolux, AEG, and SREday. So just out of my curiosity and small marketing research, can you please raise your hand if you have or you had some appliance from one of those companies? Great. Nice. Yes, our marketing, our sales management doing fine. They could be better, but I will address them to that. And who am I to talk about anything? My name is Alina Astapovich. I'm site reliability engineer. I came to being SRE from being a Java developer. I also have masters in neurotechnologies and software engineering. And three random things about me is that I really like to take a lot of pictures. I do travel a lot, especially for historical sightseeing. And recently I became really passionate about running. And I work in platform team in a sub-organization, which is called Digital Experience. And what do we mean by digital experience in Electrolux? Digital experience is something that we provide to our customers, to our clients, when they want to, for example, remotely control their washing machine from their phone. So let's imagine that right now you really need to wash something and you desperately need to start a cycle. Then this request from your phone will go to your washing machine through the cloud. And while our mobile and backend developers take care of our customers, there should be someone who will take care of our developers. And that's where our team comes into the play. So back in years when our organization was rather new and small, we started as SRE. So we were the main handler, the main owners, and the main maintainer of all infrastructure that we had back then. If someone of our team would need to have a new database, then they would come directly to us and we would build it and provide them all information and the way how they can get access to it. Later, as our organization grew, we also decided to slightly switch to a different approach known as DevOps. So we adopted infrastructure as code. We started to build more automation, more scripts. But with days when our organization really extended, with years, right now we have more than 300 members of our organization, we decided that it's time to try something new. And something new is platform engineering. Right now we're here. Depends on how long our colleagues works. So some of them call us SREs, some of them call it DevOps, but we actually something in between of everything. So as a platform team, we build platforms. And we build internal developer platform where our developers, and not only developers, can do a lot of things on their self-service basis. So for example, they can do infrastructure provisioning. So remember the example with database? So instead of going right now directly to us and making a request, they can go to IDP, internal developer platform, and provide and create everything on their own, and their database will be available for them in a couple of minutes. They can also do service onboarding there. So, for example, if someone needs a new backend service, they can create it also from IDP, and this service will be automatically integrated with all external services or sources that they need. For example, secret management or CI/CD pipeline and more. Sorry, spoilers. And we as a platform team, we are providing plugins. But even though developers can do a lot from IDP, they still have some questions. For example, which infrastructure resource they needed for specific use case. Or nothing is perfect, and in IDP there could be some bugs, and they need to understand why there's something that doesn't work. And when they do have such problems, they go to us. And to make the best experience for our developers, to help them with their self-service without being a bottleneck for them, we have a separate support channel where they can go and write some questions. We have duty weeks, so 1 week, for example, last week, I was responsible for helping our developers, and day to day, it's different. So sometimes the situation in the support channel might look like this, which is fine, but sometimes it looks like this. And it's really hard to keep up and being able to help everyone at the same time. Just because me or my team, we don't have enough physical capacity or like time-wise capacity as well. So when we started to find ourselves in the same situation more than a couple of times, we decided that we need to fix it somehow. We need to do something about it. And actually, the answer on how we can fix this situation is pretty obvious. Just extend your team, right? You don't have capacity, just extend it. But as a team who really likes to build stuff, we decided, what if we will try not to hire new SRE or like new member of our team? What if we will build it? And that's how the idea of Infra Assistant, our digital assistant, virtual team member, came to our mind. So what exactly do we want from Infra Assistant to do? First thing that we want to delegate to Infra Assistant is the most frequent and routine task that we receive is question and answers. But answers should be generated not on like generic knowledges, like what is the sun, or like what is database, or how can I create an instance of a database. It should be specifically tailored to our company knowledges, because we have unique vocabulary, we have unique terms, we have unique technical setup, as well as any other company. Also, it would be really fun if Infra Assistant can not only like talk, right? Because actions speak louder than words. So we want Infra Assistant to perform and execute real operations. It also should be independent and reliable, because what's the point of having any team member who you constantly need to go and double check? Does it do correctly and right, or we need to jump in and fix it manually? And also, I bet that there is no developer in the world, or at least in this room, who really wants to talk with arrogant and rude SRE. That's why Infra Assistant should have user-friendly interface. And keeping all that in mind, we did it. We built Infra Assistant. And now Infra Assistant is the first member of our team who replies on all messages that has been published and posted in our support channel. And if you're a really shy developer, you can always go and chat with him directly in private messages. But let's take a step back and see how Infra Assistant evolved and how we came to what we have now. So we decided to start small with the first two requirements. It's Q&A based on custom knowledge base. And that's where pattern, which is called retrievable augmented generation, we decided to explore. Regarding Q&A, regarding troubleshooting, regarding help of our developers, we sat and thought, all right, so when we are receiving some kind of question, what the first thing that we do? We go and check sources of knowledges. First thing and the most recent, the channel that has the recent information is like our Slack. So I guess in your organizations, you also have some kind of messenger where if anything happens or is there any updates, you are going and writing there directly. So it's like the really fresh and new information. Then we have more grounded, more stable version like a documentation, but sometimes it might be slightly outdated. So we cannot fully rely on that always. And of course, for developers, there's only one right source of truth, which is code. So for rack system, for rack, we decided to build a really small POC, like small system, where we have kind of two main models with this Infra Assistant microservice and cloud hosted resources. So based on the cron job, we are chunking and getting the latest updates from all free sources of knowledge that we have. We do some cleaning and pre-processing, and then we are embedding it to the vector database that is located in the cloud. And our users, and by users, I mean our developers, they can talk with the Infra Assistant with a Slack messages and Slack messages, basically. So let's see in action. So here I ask kind of simple question on how can I provision a new DynamoDB, and we can see that the answer that Infra Assistant provided, it's based on and tailored to our documentation because it's mentioned in IDP, the one that we built. And also we can see that there are two different links. So first link is a link to the documentation, and second link is a link to the previous chat or previous Stack thread where someone else already asked this question. By having these references and links, we help our developers to do extra evaluation on the correctness of answer. It's like developer can go and check that this answer was not hallucinated or made up by Infra Assistant, but it's actually built and based on the right knowledges. All right, so we fulfilled the first two requirements that we had in our mind. Now it's time to teach Infra system some new tricks. And this new tricks comes with reasoning and tool actions. And we are decided to give to Infra assistant some tools that they can use. So right now, LLMs are quite powerful, and you can implement thing which is called like pattern, which is called chain of thoughts, or like reasoning, where instead of telling LLM what to do and how to do, you just throw in a request, and then LLM will decide by itself what tool it should use in order to completely and successfully complete your task. For example, you can do it in different ways. The most simple one is give access to LLM to your tools and then write a prompt where you will describe what kind of tools are there. So like, for example, search knowledge base or get current date and get current date. And then LLM will make a loop. Okay, all right. Based on the request, based on question, based on that I got from the user, should I use some kind of tool where I have access to or not? And if no, then we're going back to user. We just already made up the answer. Or if yes, then it will execute tool and will kind of endless chain until LLM will think that, all right, we finally got what we wanted to. And this tool can be anything. For example, it can be a simple function like get current date. There are a lot of frameworks that you can use to implement this chain. It can be Python, it can be Java, it can be basically anything. But we have some problems with prompt and tool use. Good thing is that LLM knows what it can do, and it's like, all right, I'm powerful. I can do anything that my developers give it to me. But what exactly should I use? We know that there is a problem with a context window, and not like different models have different length of the context, different length of tokens that you can put into them. And you cannot, and sometimes when you do this endless loop of tools and reasoning, this context expands and you are losing the quality of answers because LLM is overwhelmed with information. For example, right, you decide that it can use tool number one, but then tool number one output goes back to LLM, and then LLM decides that, all right, now like output of like tool number one is not enough, we will go to tool number two, and it's like endless, while your context window is like out of space. And this can be solved by introducing multi-agent system. So it can be, so this is our Infra system right now. And when I'm saying that tools in LLM can be anything, it can be agent as well. But what do we mean by agent? So agent is a small subsystem with access, like we already know what is agent from the keynote. Thanks for for making my job here easier. So agents is small subsystems with independent access to LLM. So you can think about like a small system built within with the other system. And here's a kind of diagram where you can see the chain of thoughts and reasoning. So we have main supervisor. It's like the main agent, which gets the raw request, and it's kind of do the main thinking and the main reasoning. So for example, okay, I have a request, and it also has an access and list of all tools as a sub-agents. And these sub-agents can be either like a small and simple agents, for example, like knowledge base or log search. They're independent. Or they can also be supervisors, like onboarding agent. So onboarding agent has its own set of subtools. And by having this flexibility in the way how you can build agents, how you can make them arbitrarily nested, you have a huge power in your hands on the way how you want to build your generative AI application. It's really powerful, it's time-consuming, it's context and token-consuming, but you can achieve incredible results with that. So let's talk slightly more specific on the use cases. So for example, access management. Access management agent can be achieved with a different way. So for example, we are asking we have Atlassian agent. It has information about Atlassian APIs. You can do it, for example, either in a raw way and by building some like Python code that can be executed, or you can do it actually in a more elegant way, where you will provide open API specification of APIs, for example, Atlassian APIs, and then give full freedom to LLM to decide which API to use. And then LLM will also ask, based on the input of open API specification, which parameters it should use for the specific API, and it will go back to their user with additional questions. So here's an example. I asked, hey, Infra assistant, my driver license has been expired. Can you help me to get it? Yes. And it knows that for this specific request, like a post, it should know the parameter which is called like email, and it asked me. And I provided it, and like, okay, we're good to go. Everyone is happy. Everyone is happy. But how exactly the reasoning and chain of thoughts happening inside the LLM mind? Here I also asked to pretend that my team member, Marcus, we usually do this talk together. He's not here, unfortunately. Marcus, you are here with us in my heart. I asked to pretend that Marcus is a new joiner, and he should have access to Jira. So this is our role request with our email and the question and then my message from the Slack. Sorry, what's happening? Thanks. So from the role request, the main supervisor that we have decided that it's time to delegate this task to the onboarding supervisor with the specific instructions. So this instruction has been generated by LLM. I only did the role request in a Slack message. And then from onboarding supervisor, it's like with the instruction, it goes to Atlassian agent, which is right. Sorry. Then Atlassian agent and the main supervisor, they can talk with each other and with trying to understand the more specific parameters that should be posted with our API request and which exactly API should be used. So like after some time, after some thoughts, we're going back to Atlassian agent, and Atlassian agent from the OpenAPI specification that we are put into the prompt, into the its knowledge base, picking up the right API, and we finally have Marcus onboarded because we see the thought that everything went great, account is active, and Marcus can finally do its job. If you remember from the beginning of the presentation, we have internal developer platform. And in IDP, we have a lot of already built scripts and automation that our developers use. But sometimes it's really where our developers, they are too lazy to use UI. And sometimes it's not really necessary to go and click all these buttons, like filling a lot of fields and so on. We decided that maybe Infra Assistant also can help with that. By using the same approach as API, we provided new functions, like new agents to Infra Assistant with the functions. For example, we have a separate plugin in our IDP where we can give access to our beta distribution group of one of our mobile applications. And Infra Assistant right now is really willing to help us and other developers and project managers and QA people, so basically anyone, to give them access to test line group. What is nice is here, instead of just simply listening to what we're asking to, Infra Assistant also asks the confirmation. So sometimes if your function is potentially can run and can execute some vulnerable code, or you are not just really trust into LLM, which you shouldn't actually, like all the time, you can implement user confirmation. So we can see that Infra Assistant come back, like here, I'll kind of ask, please provide me extra information, like which email should I onboard, and then also ask the additional confirmation from confirmation that are you sure that this is what you want me to do? So this function is really helpful if you have something more complicated rather than just adding someone to some group. Same goes with infrastructure provisioning. So like with ITP, we already have a list of APIs that is available that we can call from anywhere, basically. But we can see that it also works with more complicated tasks and more complicated requests and more complicated parameters. So here, for example, Marcus, because he's already onboarded, he can do some job, ask to provision a new S3 bucket, and we can see the full output of what Infra Assistant will execute. Talking about AWS and more complicated tasks, the latest agent that we are working on right now is troubleshooting. And troubleshooting is, even for a human, is really complicated task. I'm not talking about LLMs, because LLMs really likes to think they're more powerful than they actually are. So for troubleshooting agents, we gave our supervisor access to sub-agents, log search agent, code search agent is our Git repositories with the code. It also has access to CLI agent, So like it can go and execute commands into AWS Cloud. But by using IAM, which is like service provided by AWS, we gave to our troubleshooting, to our AWS CLI agent, access to only read access only. It cannot do any damage. It can only see the current status of infrastructure of our network or any other resources that we have in our cloud. And it also have access to knowledge base supervisor, knowledge base access, because sometimes from the troubleshooting, you really need to have the context. It's really hard to understand where the problem is if you do not have the context of the whole architectural setup. Let's see how troubleshooting agent works. Our different AWS accounts, they are connected through thing which is called transit gateway. And right now they're in the correct state. And we pretended that we have a problem with connection to one of the clusters in one of the accounts. And we can see from Infra system outputs that seems that transit gateway set up correctly. So maybe there is something else that is related to cluster-specific network policies. So maybe you need to go and double check what is happening with on your side. But infrastructure-wise, everything is fine. And then we went and decided to make some disruption between our accounts. And we can see that Infra systems successfully completed the troubleshooting here as well. Because the actual problem that we did was the security group configurations. So Infra system did a great job again. Nice work. But let's talk a little bit about the accuracy. So we cannot fully rely that Infra system is always correct because it's not true. We will not lie, and we are making the surveys from our developers, and we do evaluation of the correctness of answers of Infra systems. And this is the scale where we the performance score of Infra systems. By 0 being confidently wrong is like when Infra systems says complete nonsense, but being really determined that yes, I'm correct, which is not true. And 5 being our senior SRE team member, it means that it actually might know even more than our senior engineers. So we don't need to do anything. And 2, from 2 to 4 is something in between. But so as you can see that it's not always right, but even then it's not always correct. From answer that Infra system provided, we can get the understanding of the context of the problem much better, and the same goes for developers. This is our feedback loop. I'm running out of time, so I will try to make it fast. This is our feedback loop. So after every interaction with Infra systems, users get the form. And we're also asking for more, less numeric, more word feedback. And we can see from that what actually our developers and our members of DX thinks. It's slightly slow, yes, we know, but it's still very useful because it gives the references to the previous talks. And for example, if someone is out of the context, and it's really hard to keep up with everything what is happening in the organization with more than 300 people, and answers really helps with understanding the different corners of our organization. So even though Infra assistant is slightly slow sometimes and sometimes might be inaccurate, whatever, we still see the benefits of having it as a member of our team. First, it really helps us with more routine and more boring tasks like Q&A, access management, and more. Same goes for helping with understanding the context of the problem. And if we will compare how much time we would spend as if we will switch from building plugins for IDP or from other tasks to answering simple questions and simple tasks that Infra Assistant right now covers, it's really cost efficient. But again, I will not pretend that Infra Assistant will replace us in tomorrow. Me, you, all Electrolux, and all SREs. There is a room for improvement. And first thing that we want to do is reduce response delays, because depending on the complexity of the tasks, it might take up to several minutes to execute and get the answer from Infra Assistant. And trust me, it's really boring just to wait while your automation will do something. Second thing that we want to add is advanced evaluation, because instead of right now, what we do is we kind of asking for, please give us a feedback about the whole system. But what we actually can do is to evaluate sub-agents and agents independently, and we can see which agent is mostly used, which agent is not used at all, and where we need to put small fixes and where we need to fix InfraAssistant fully. And of course, it would be really nice if InfraAssistant can go and improve itself. Because, like, for example, I got a negative feedback on providing this answer. It can go and change the prompt or change in the knowledge base or update Confluence page. Because if we believe that InfraAssistant can troubleshoot our infrastructure, can it actually troubleshoot itself while we are having some really nice lunch? But these are the questions for the future. Thanks a lot for listening to me, and let's stay in touch. We also like to build and share not only internal tools and platforms, but we also do some open source. And right now, mostly we've focused on FinOps. So please check our open source project page and have a great day. Thank you. And we have 2 minutes left for questions. Sorry for being slightly late. I will talk with you later. Who was the first? Yes. So we have a cron job that runs every night. When we are saving information and data to vector database, we use metadata there, and we put dates when the last, when page on, for example, Confluence page was updated, the latest. And then we also go to, when we're doing the cron job, we check the date when the Confluence page was updated, and we are comparing it from the metadata in database and actual state. So if it's changed, then we are retrieving the new latest information. If not, then we're just skipping this page. Yep. I think right now we have 3 levels. And for example, let me go back to my slide with so we have main supervisor. Then, for example, we have several agents with sub-agents. So 1, 2, 3. So we have the same for onboarding, because we have different types of where people should be onboarded. We also extended knowledge base, because so right now we have knowledge base supervisor, and then we have 3 sub-agents for 3 different sources of knowledges. Because from our experience and from our test, we see that for our data, the way how our data is being treated, unfortunately, it works best if we have separated the agents for Slack, Confluence, and for Bitbucket code. And then based on the request, we have for knowledge-based supervisor, we have extended prompts where we are saying that, for example, all right, if you think that this question is really formal and it's regarding some organizational setup, please go to Confluence, because Confluence has this grounded fundamental knowledges. If this question is more about infrastructure as code and someone is wondering what kind of resources of Terraform we are using, then go to Bitbucket repo, Bitbucket knowledge. And if this question you think that it's more relevant to some incidents, then please go to Slack, because Slack will get latest updates. So it's, I would say, 3-level depth. The first thing is that InfraAssistant is our internal tool. It's not available to our customers. Second, it's available only in Slack, and Slack is already there's already a filtration on the people who has access to our organization in Slack. Third, we have extra layer where we are checking that in Slack you can also invite some guests and consultants. So we have integration with Azure groups where we see people. Basically, where does this person belongs to in an organization? Is it from DX or is it non-DX, and so on. And secondly, InfraAssistant, and thirdly or fourthly, I don't know, I'm tired of counting, InfraAssistant has only access to the things that is available in IDP, in our internal developer platform, and it's safe because we do not provide access to production, actual production infrastructure. And if we are talking about infrastructure provisioning and for troubleshooting, then it's only read-only access. So there is no way that InfraAssistant can do some damage. And our knowledge, sources of knowledge, are internally opened. So it's not like we go and read private channels in Slack, for example. So with that, I think for us in our current, as it's internal tool, it's fine. We think that it's secure enough. But you can always add more and more layers, but it does not really make sense for us, at least at this point. Okay. Right. I know if you work in our sub-organization. Yes, yes. Yes, because this is the way how our IDP works. We are like, the way how our organization is set up is that we're trying to first delegate ownership of all, and for example, infrastructure resources, also Confluence and so on, to the product teams. And then they are responsible for making like other public Confluence pages or private ones. Same goes with Slack channels. For infrastructure, as I said, we have a layer of Azure groups, in Azure admin AD groups, where you have information on person email, his job title, and to which team it belongs to. So we also check, does this person belongs to the team within their DX or not? And also for IDP, for example, for infrastructure provisioning APIs, in IDP we have extra layer of groups. So like we have Azure groups, and we have internal groups in IDP with a certain permissions. For example, if it's like really complicated setup, but from groups in IDP, we can also see, does this person should have access to something or not? And if not, then Infra Assistant will reply that, sorry, you cannot you can have access to this too, or you cannot perform some kind of action. Yes, it's either read-only mode, either APIs, just API calls. See, I think we can talk during. So we do not do fine-tuning of models because we think it's for our use case over engineering. It's based on a context like RAG approach. The idea is that in RAG, you have a request that goes to LLM, then LLM finds the most keywords in your request, and then it goes to vector database, where we store like our knowledge base information. For example, you have Confluence page. It has been chunked to several paragraphs and stored in vector database as a vector, like as a numeric. Then, and you have embedding model that do this kind of transformation from words to like figures to numbers. LLM selects the keywords in your request, goes to embedding model. Embedding model do query in search in vector database, and vector database gives you the relevant piece of information from Confluence, for example, 1 or 2 paragraphs. Then this paragraphs has been integrated into the prompt and like in the context of the conversation with the LLM. The prompt from the raw request that, for example, how to get access to Infra Assistant, or like what is Infra Assistant? It's extend the context, like I got the question of what is Infra Assistant, this is the answer, and it will try to perform and create like the answer from their Confluence page. Infra Assistant is something, thanks for asking. I hope, yes. So like it's RAG basically, RAG application. Yes, I hope we do not do fine tuning. So it's a model that is hosted in cloud provider. Right now we use cloud, but we also tried Amazon models, we tried GPT. So basically you just give a really huge and long prompt into your LLM. I hope it answers. If not, then we can talk after, because I think everyone is hungry and waiting. Thank you. Thanks a lot.